What's up, you beauties? Welcome to another live HW episode. I'm Jim, and I'm joined by the one and only, the host of HW Full Circle, my esteemed co-host, Jack Faja Smith. Was there an echo in there?
There
Do you
was
hear
an
that?
echo.
If you're not listening live, which we apparently are, please make sure to subscribe, follow, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Spreaker. Quick shout out to our affiliate sites, fullpresscoverage.com and bellyupsports.com. Belly Up Sports recently updated their site. Go check it out during our episode. They have everything you need when it comes to sports and in terms of growth. Some see them as the next Barstool Sports. Just want to make sure you guys heard me say in terms of growth, nothing more. And while you're listening to our episode, check out our site, hwhockey.net. Okay, Jack, so this is kind of our preview episode to the preview of the trade deadline episode, which we're going to record this weekend. We'll be joined, obviously, hopefully by Kyle and Steve for that. So this is kind of like, I want to assess the team a little bit tonight with you and obviously talk trade deadline a little bit. Let's kind of figure out what happened over the last year with this team. I mean, last March, right? The Flyers were just beginning their 9-game winning streak. And, before the show, we were talking about how they were scoring 4 goals or more in every single one of those games except one. And they weren't giving up more than 3 goals in any game. And now they're giving up 5-6 goals a night and they can't score more than 2. What the hell happened from, March last year to now?
I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's really just Matt Niskanen and Tyler Pitlick. Because as we'll get into, Thompson and Grant were trade deadline additions. The Pitlick and I just said Niskanen were with the team for the whole season, and those two are the only two not returning players. I mean, if you want to count Ghostin as an addition, I guess you could with Gustafsson. And that has been the only on-paper difference. And you would have thought that the experience gained from last season to this season for guys like Sanheim, especially Myers, Farabee, who's been good, you would have seen like an uptick and they could have covered for Niskanen and whatnot. But it's been the exact opposite regression across the board for almost all players. Especially Carter Hart, can't put it all on him, but it's still the regression's there regardless of whose fault it is. And it is a night and day. Did not think that one player could hold up a team, especially when it's not, you're a top dog, if you will. He was also added last year, Niskanen. So the fact that he was able to literally be the bar for this team to send them into the playoffs, and then when he's taken away from them to fall right back down to what we're used to is very concerning. It's hard to point out exactly what it is, but when you look at where we were last year and this year, those are the on-paper differences that I see. And it's needless to say, it's incredibly concerning.
Jack, so during the offseason, Niskanen decided he was going to retire basically right after the playoffs ended. Chuck Fletcher knew. There's no doubt about that. We know from one of our sources who was close to the team at the time. And it seems like Chuck spent most of his time trying to convince him to come back as opposed to finding a replacement. And to me, that was kind of the turning point. I mean, obviously they didn't look great in the playoffs, but everybody kind of chalked that up to the bubble, right? And so there was already an excuse for that. But to not have a backup plan or make the backup plan, priority number 1 to replace what they lost in Matt Niskanen, I think, it was the turning point, at least for Chuck Fletcher's tenure. Like the first year, he could do no wrong. And the second year, it's like he can do nothing right. Everything's an excuse. I'm not sure if that's trickled down to the players, the coaching staff, or not. maybe the players realize that, hey, this roster's not it, or you bring in Eric Gustafson to replace Matt Niskanen, and like the players know, they know who's good and who's not. They know that they're not as good as last year. I'm wondering, and this is not an excuse, I'm wondering if that kind of stuff has trickled down from the top to the bottom, like to not go out and get a guy like Chara who signed with league minimum with the Capitals, apparently to go play with Ovechkin and those guys and go win a cup. And this is something that we talked about on OMB podcast with Isaiah earlier. Make sure you guys go check out that episode. But teams are choosing other teams. They're not choosing the Flyers. They want to go win a cup with Ovi. They want to, go to Pittsburgh and play with Crosby, or they want to go to these fun cities in Las Vegas where, they're not getting taxed out the ass and whatnot, or Florida, even Tampa Bay. They don't want to come to Philly. The Broad Street Bullies are from the 70s. That's almost 50 years now, like they're not the same franchise. I don't think they're a desirable place to play. So, let's talk a little bit about how Chuck has to fix this team. Do you trust him to go out in free agency and sign a guy to a reasonable or even a steal of a contract? Or, from what we've seen already, is he going to just overpay for a guy and get screwed in the end? What are your thoughts? Are you comfortable with Chuck? Do you think he's going to do something of significance? What do you think?
I'm a little scared, to be honest, because when he had all the money in the world to spend, he made this team better. They didn't become juggernauts by any means. But he spent a lot of time, or Hextall spent a lot of time freeing up that cap space, and what was left of it, he spent. And the team became a pretty good playoff team. Their playoff experience we'll never really know because of the bubble, but they did have that winning streak at the end of the season that was making them look like they were going to go on this magical run. That was actually a very small sample size when you consider this year and the beginning of last year. Now that he doesn't really have the money to spend and he has to be careful with the flat cap, and seeing that he kind of had the same thing this offseason and did essentially nothing, I don't know how you can have any confidence that he's going to do the right thing. I would like to think that going into this season, he had an idea and a plan, and losing Niskanen was a massive issue because he had a year left. So you were going to be out from under that cap, and it really wasn't that bad for what the guy brought to your team. Now you got to go get somebody in free agency or trade for somebody that's going to fill all the gaps left by Niskanen and somehow work financially, not only for this year, but years going forward with the flat cap and the Seattle expansion. I think he became overwhelmed, and it's not the only GM that I'm sure this has happened to, but like how many other guys up and randomly retired on a GM? Not many. And it's not an excuse. He gets paid a lot of money to figure this out. And signing Gustafson was a massive swing and miss. So because of that, and because of his lack of action, like Chara was available, like you were saying, sure, he could have said, I don't want to play for Philly. We'll never know. But the fact that we were not the team and we were interested to grab him, it's a little concerning. No magical trades were made, no signings, nothing. So the fact that, am I going to believe that he's going to do something at this deadline or this offseason? The deadline, no. I don't think he's going to do anything, but maybe sell Scott Laughton. We'll ultimately see. I don't think he's adding anything. I don't like the Mark Stahl rumors. I think that's stupid. I don't know if you're trying to salvage this year. They needed to get 4 points in the last 2 games. They got one. They got 2. But they gave Boston 1, so it's almost like negated. So, I don't think they're going for it. I'm almost glad they lost. I don't want them getting cute at the deadline thinking, oh, we're actually kind of not that bad. We're going to add Mark Stahl and go for it or some bullshit. I think they should sell. What it's going to come down to is the offseason and what he does with the expansion draft and the draft itself, really. That's where we're really going to see what Fletcher is made of. He's going to get by this season regardless of all the jokes and everything being made. He's going to have to do big things, and it's going to be a lot harder than when he first got here because he's going to have to actually get creative and figure something out. And non-action will not be accepted this time. They'll call for his head on a platter if he does nothing. If they, God forbid, try to run it back.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like I think I would rather him start to look forward to next season. I hate the names that keep coming up, and I also hate that they keep coming from Detroit. Yeah. Where Steve Yzerman is the general manager. Like, dude, I do not want Chuck Fletcher making any deals with Steve Yzerman because he will get fleeced, right? And then we're hearing Jonathan Bernier and Mark Stahl. For what, dude? Like, there's 20 games left, and there's under 20 games left. Why do you want those guys? Unless Detroit is going to help you out and take some salary off your cap, I don't want either one of those guys. Unless you're planning on re-signing Bernier to back up Carter Hart the next year or so, okay. But I'm still Chuck Fletcher scares me, dude. Go back if the listeners are listening or watching. Go back and look and see what happened to the Minnesota Wild and Chuck Fletcher during the last expansion draft. I'm sure you guys have heard of Alex Tuch by now. I'm sure you've heard of Eric Halla by now. They both came from Minnesota. And I believe Fletcher even traded picks to Minnesota, not to take a player who they ended up trading to the Knights anyway. Like, oh my God, dude. Yeah, it doesn't look good for what could happen. I don't have confidence in Fletcher going into this. I'm hoping that he learned from what happened last time. I don't know who he's going to protect. There was news came out. I'm sorry, not news, but there's talk that they're thinking of completely rethinking their strategy heading into the offseason, from protecting 7 offensive players and 3 defensive players plus the goalie to protecting 4 offensive players, 4 defensive players, and the goalie. It kind of indicates that they could potentially go out and trade for a top 4 defenseman, or, and I hope not, that they're considering protecting Shane Gostisbehere. What are your thoughts on that, Jack? What would you like to see them do there?
They got to make they got to be making trades left and right. We shouldn't have to focus on who they're going to protect, because they should have made trades where it's going to be a no-brainer for us. They should either, I don't know if it's Myers or Sanheim. I don't know if it's TK. I don't know. But they're not protecting Ghost because they just sent the guy through waivers knowing he wouldn't be claimed. So they don't have to protect him. So I lean towards they're going to try to acquire somebody. And I don't know if that's the deadline. You talk to Fletcher, his job's way too hard. So I can't imagine anybody's coming. It's almost like a step ahead. Like, why is this being reported? Do something first, then we'll talk. Because I don't understand where the thought process is, and who they're really worried about protecting. So that's going to be, put a pin in that for now for me, because I don't have enough information on how the trade deadline is going to go and what's going to happen before the Seattle expansion draft. Right now, it feels like misdirection, like to keep us like off his back or something, because it makes no sense. But then again, it gets a little more intrigue for the trade deadline itself. Maybe there's something in the holster that we didn't necessarily see coming. Is it Josh Manson from Anaheim? It's Josh Manson, yep. Right? He's continuously been connected with Philly. And when we look at it, we don't know why Anaheim would make that trade. He looks like a guy they can build around, especially if, God forbid, Laine hits free agency and has already said he wants to play on the West Coast. If Anaheim, LA, it's right there. They can win that bidding war. And with the draft picks that they have coming in, like Trevor Zegras, like they could turn things around real quick. So I don't know why they would be so quick to dangle a guy like Manson. Either way, Flyers been connected to him. So maybe something's coming up, some kind of trade, and maybe that's why. But as of right now, because I don't trust Fletcher to do anything big or the right move, especially at this point, it's grain of salt with me right now, much like the rumors we're hearing with Bernier and Mark Stahl.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, Josh Manson is a right-handed defenseman, 29 years old. He's making $4.1 million signed through next season. So if they trade for him now, they have him for at least one more year. And hopefully they could re-sign him. 30 years old is still young for a defenseman in the NHL. Just stay-at-home guy. Some other names, Jack, I'm just going to throw at you that could be potential here. And again, we're looking for next season. Obviously, Mattias Ekholm is out there, left-handed D, 30 years old, 3.75 signed through next season. I don't see the Flyers going after him. I feel like he's more of a guy that's going to go to a team that's in win-now mode. I could see him going to Boston, unfortunately. Colin Miller, who is less desirable, I think, but he's a right-handed defenseman, 28 years old, 3.88 million for signed through next year as well. And the guy that I want, Ryan Ellis, who is on the injured reserve. But if we're already looking at next year, then why not? I believe he's making 6.25 million signed for the next 5 years. So that is something I would rather Fletcher do, because I have very little confidence heading into the offseason that he can sign a guy and sign him for less than that. You know what I mean? I'm comfortable with 6.25 for the next 5 million for Ryan Ellis. I think he's exactly what is missing from this roster. I think he can come in and replace a guy like Matt Niskanen and bring stability to the defense and hopefully the locker room. Again, if you guys listen to OMB podcast, you'll get my opinion on what I think about the Flyers locker room. Get it on that show. Go listen. Jack, I want to hear your thoughts on some of these names. Ekholm, Colin Miller, obviously not as sexy, maybe a bottom pairing guy. Ryan Ellis, is there anybody that that intrigues you?
Of those three names, I like all but Miller. I have no interest in him. We just need to be better. He's like another, I don't want to say Braun, but like level wise, he just doesn't really do it for me. Ekholm, sure, I would take him. I don't know what the cost would be at this point. If we're talking trade deadline costs, like from what I heard, it's through the roof and it's not worth it. Ryan Ellis had taken a heartbeat, injury and all. Again, don't know what it would cost. Those two I would definitely take. Manson is another name I would take. I don't know if Ristolainen's being dangled or not. Those are I'm just pulling for whatever I've heard. And then we'll see in free agency and what have you. So I'm really not sure. Unfortunately, I don't think they do anything. It would be something stupid like Mark Stahl or some kind of insert journeyman defenseman here that would only be for this season, and that would really be it. But even then, I think they're going to sell. I think he should sell, and we're looking at free agency or in the off season, which is a whole different ball game.
Yeah. So you mentioned selling. Some of the names that we read off, or maybe we didn't. We did. Scott Laughton, Brian Elliott, Michael Raffle, and Eric Gustafson. So it's interesting because these are some of the names that you gave, and it's interesting that you put Brian Elliott on there. We want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I just, it's tough when you look at his stats and the way this defense is played, but, scouts who actually watch the game would definitely commend Brian Elliott's performance, not to mention his track record. Certain teams out there, I doubt the Flyers deal with Washington, although they have before. But if Washington's looking for anything this year, it's probably some more goaltending. A battle-hardened playoff performer, his time with the Blues and even a little bit with the Flyers, it would not behoove them to put him with their young goalie. You don't want to go in trying to win a cup with Samsonov and Vanacek or Vanchek, whatever the hell his name is.
I think you got it.
Yeah, I would. How much better would you feel with Samsonov and Brian Elliott behind a good team, than you would two rookies essentially. So I could see, I'm not saying they're going to get like a haul for the guy, but like he's on a 1-year deal, and then you could certainly re-sign him in the offseason if need be. Washington probably can't afford him. And then we're like, hey, listen, we picked something up for you. We're going to retool and do what we can next year. We love what you did for us. We love you with Carter Hart. He's probably going to get something of a raise, nothing crazy, but I mean, hey, why not?
Yeah, I hear you. So real quick, just want to throw this out there before we get to some of these other guys here. Our good buddy Ty Shelton just informed us that the New Jersey Devils have traded Palmieri and Travis Zajac for a first and prospects. Wow.
Yopes, it's like Job, ST, and Greer were the prospects. Islanders have acquired forwards Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for forwards Greer and Yopes, the Islanders' first-round pick in 2021, and a conditional fourth in the 2022 draft. Just going to say, I called this on Full Circle, not the deal, and I didn't think Travis Zajac would ever leave the Devils, but they're Lou Lamoriello guys, and I said, I know that Palmieri has been linked to Boston. If he doesn't go to Boston, he's going to go to the Islanders, and I actually he's going to go to the Islanders. It's a Lou Lamoriello guy. Didn't think to get Zajac to go with him, but it's a lot. But then again, the Islanders are down their best player, and they're kind of going for it. So I don't hate it. I really don't.
I love it for the Islanders. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked before, I think the last show or the show before, how draft picks in 2021 are, some good teams especially don't really want them because they haven't been able to scout the prospects the same way. So consider that. And, the two prospects that the Islanders gave up, they get a potential third line center, I think, in Travis Zajac, longtime Devil. And I want to touch on that in a second. And Kyle Palmieri, who can still play, top 6, middle 6 minutes, play on your power play, leadership guy, even Zajac. It looks like, and maybe this is what the Flyers need, maybe they need to take a page out of the Devils book here. The Devils are turning the page. They got rid of Andy Green last year. They're getting rid of longtime Devil Travis Zajac this year, and Kyle Palmieri, who, if I'm not mistaken, was their leading goal scorer the last
Most
year or so.
likely. I mean, unless it was Jack Hughes. I don't know who. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Palmieri has always been the goal scorer. He's always been on the trade block too. He finally gets moved. I don't really know those prospects from the Islanders. They don't ring a bell for me. I heard Kiefer Bellows was a name that was connected in these trade negotiations, and the fact that they didn't have him in the deal, they got some firepower there. They got some young firepower still with the Islanders between Noah Dobson, Wahlstrom, and even Bellows. He's a former first-round pick. Now you add Palmieri into that mix. Like I wouldn't surprise me if he was like your first-line winger, left winger to play with Barzell and I forget who they have on the right wing there, but like Barzell is the guy who opens space for everybody else because of all his dipsy doodling and, just hogging the puck and stick handling. I think it's Eberle actually. So if you have a guy like Eberle and Palmieri on that line and he makes room for them, like they're going to be screen shoot the entire time they're in the offensive zone, and the one thing this team needs to do to win is score more goals. And that's a big ad for them.
I think that's a hell of a trade by the Islanders. And if there's one team besides the Sabres that I don't necessarily hate, and I never really have hated the Islanders, I don't hope that they win a cup. Like I don't care if they don't win the cup, but they put together a very solid team. I like the Islanders team. I like the players they have on their team. I love the coach. Good goaltending, solid defense, very underrated defense corps. And they have a mix of kids. Oliver Wahlstrom's up, scoring some goals. You mentioned Bellows. Who's the kid they have on the back end? Dobson, you mentioned.
Oh, Dobson, yeah.
So the Islanders are loading up on guys like Palmieri, Green, Zajac, but they also have, the right mix of vets and young kids filtering into the squad. And if we come back to the Flyers a little bit, Jack, they're not the same, right? They're kind of top heavy with Giroux, Voracek, JVR, even Coots is 29, I believe, 28. And there's a kind of a gap between those guys, and you have your Sanheims, Provorovs, Myers, the younger kids, there's not really a middle. And they're a weird mix, right?
They're similar and weird at the same time, where they have their older and younger guys. They don't have the bridge guys. Like Ghost would have been one of those guys. Because he's like what, 26, 27. Like he's just not, he's barely been with the team except for this horrendous year. And it's not all on him. I'm just saying he's like one, and so is Scott Lawton. There's another guy who's like a bridge guy. Other than that, the older core of this team is one of the main problems when I'm looking at you, Voracek. Like these guys, like they're not carrying the team; they're being carried by the team. And one of the most when people start talking about getting rid of Voracek, and it blows my mind because some people I really respect say this, are like, well, where are those 60, 70 points going to come from? I'm like, whoever the hell else you put in there. You know what I mean? Like whether it's two guys or one guy, or you take 8.25 and spend it on someone else. And I wouldn't even care if they put it on the defensive end. Joel Farabee, have him step up. They have plenty of guys. You'll get those points. Your team's better off without the guy. End of story.
Yeah. So our buddy Ant DeMayo over here who tunes in weekly with us. Thanks again, Ant. He says, "What's up, guys? I'm so sick of hearing of this team, especially Voracek. Something isn't right in the locker room. Why not go after Eichel and Ellis? Wow. I want a complete transformation. I know it won't happen, but I just hope Jake goes away. Someone said last night he's an issue in the locker room, but was wondering if you heard anything to that." So I haven't heard specifically Jake. I've heard some weird stuff happening in the locker room. I can't really get specific. But Jake Voracek. So again, I talked about him a little bit on OMB podcast with Isaiah, but I'll kind of repeat my thoughts on Jake. And these are just my opinions, guys. You know, the first thing everybody wants to say is, oh, well, you're not in the locker room. And I'm not. But I feel like some of the players give you enough to where you can kind of judge their character a little bit. You know, if you pay attention, everybody kind of gives away a little bit about themselves when they're not really conscious of it. Jake Voracek lets you see enough of what goes on in his mind, at least to me, that I can tell you right now, he's not the kind of guy I want my younger players looking up to. And he has too much of a voice in that locker room to where you're not only bad now, but you're poisoning some of these guys for years to come, right? Two examples for Jake Voracek and why I don't necessarily like him. You remember a couple months back with the whole Sealski thing, Jack? I think I voiced my opinions about that, but totally unprofessional. Bush League, a real man, a real leader. If you have an issue with somebody, we'll take it to the side. You know, here's the thing. I think a good person, maybe a leader, they will treat people who do really nothing for them the same way they'll treat somebody who, you know, they know or does things for them. And, you know, I know the players don't like talking to the media and, you know, obviously media like we are right now. I'm not saying nice things about Jake Voracek, but if somebody writes an opinion about you, if somebody writes an opinion about me, that's your opinion. You can believe whatever you want. You're not hurting my feelings. Jake Voracek's making $8.25 million a year for the next 5 years. Mike Sealski writes bad things about him in a newspaper that people don't really read that much anymore. Jake Voracek doesn't take him aside, doesn't, turns it into a big deal at a press conference. He's got Travis Konechny sitting next to him, 23-year-old Travis Konechny, who you would think looks up to Jake Voracek, right? He's a leader on the team. And Voracek makes Sealski look like a moron in front of everybody on TV, in front of his colleagues. The players are laughing about it. Konechny doesn't know what to do. It's uncomfortable and it's uncalled for, and it's Bush League, I think. The next thing that bothered me about Voracek came out with a quote the other night, and this is what he said. He said, playing 60 minutes is a hockey cliche. It's impossible to do. This is a leader on your hockey team saying that, who's not going anywhere for 5 more years. Even if you think that, you can't say that because you're a leader on this team. You can't make it okay for other players, for younger players to hear you say it's impossible for a hockey team to play hard for 60 minutes.
Oh my God. I almost said something I shouldn't. Like the dumbest comment of the year goes to, like, it's almost as dumb as McNabb when he was like, the game went to overtime. It's like, yeah, well, I don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs. Like just such stupidity. Like, obviously we don't expect you to hustle for 60 minutes, but we don't expect you to take any time off. You have to play the game. You have to back check when the time comes to back check. Like he said control. We don't expect you to have the puck the entire game. Is that I cannot believe he actually said that. Like he really thinks we're stupid is how I took it. Like he must think we're dumber than rocks. If he thinks he can say something like that and not know we're going to torch him for it. That was easily the stupidest comment I've heard in quite a while from a Philadelphia athlete. And it's jarring, it's mind-boggling, and it's one of the reasons people can't stand him. It's like, you really think that's what we're saying when we complain about you? Like you're blind to your own deficiencies. You know, it's good, and that's why you say something so stupid. And it's, oh my God, I almost forgot about that. I really, really hated that. Like, what a moron.
Yeah.
Like you said about I meant to say this, I'm sorry, but what you said about the Sealski thing, let's not forget, and I said it at the time, that's all we talk about that day was Sealski. You know what else happened that game? Travis Konechny had a hat trick. I believe it was his first career hat trick. It was his first hat trick for a Flyers that season. And all we remember is him bitching Sealski out for something that happened in a news article.
Another great point. He's kind of stole the spotlight from TK there a little bit. You know, we could have been talking about his hat trick for the next 24 to 48 hours. And instead, we're talking about how Voracek embarrassed Mike Sealski, you know, and it's, there's a lot of talk. People laughed and it was funny. But I mean, people want to see hockey players be candid. They want to see more personality, right? Some guys are too vanilla, but I don't want to see that. I want to, especially not from my top guys. I want to see, I want to have respectful guys. I want to have guys that are there to work, guys that can show the younger guys how to be a professional, that aren't going to take any shifts off. And I know, like, you can't have you can't have a great game 82 games in a row. Like, we're not stupid as fans. All we want is consistent effort. And we've talked about it before. When you have inconsistent guys at the top, it's like a trickle down effect. The fact that this team is inconsistent on a game to game basis is no surprise. Look at the roster. They have some of the streakiest players on the team. Travis Konecny is now falling into that category. Travis Konecny was not that streaky of a guy. He was what he was. He was on pace for 65, 70 points last year. Completely he's fallen off this year. JVR is in that category of streaky or inconsistent, however you want to look at it. Because for whatever reason, people hear streaky and they're like, oh, this guy can get on a tear. To me, it's inconsistent. Why can't you do that every other game or every game, right? It's possible. The teams that are good have consistent players that can put the puck in the net. They give effort every night. We're not asking for 82 goals, Jake Voracek. Asking for effort, dude. To sit here and say that you can't play, what does he play? 15 to 20 minutes a night? That you can't give effort 15 to 20 minutes a night is, I think, a goddamn shame. And they should be looking at any way possible to get Voracek out of that room, because it's not going to get better till he's gone. My opinion.
It's hard to argue at this point. Like, maybe 2 years ago, I'd have fought that. Maybe I'd been like, oh, no, it's not as bad as you think. But when you look at the different coaches who've come through here, when you look at the different schemes and everything and whatnot, the same core is here. And I don't personally think it's Drew. Like, he's not the same player he was, but he's still freaking trying. Like, he's doing the best he can. He had 2 goals alone in that one game to get them to overtime. Was that the first Boston game where they won in overtime? He scored both goals. I know he had that really nice backhanded goal. I don't see. Yeah, Jake had a goal, but it was a really nice pass from Konecny. He still does. He likes to play offense. Let's not be real. Voracek likes to play offense. That's what he does. He's a Russian player. Sort of. Czech from close enough. Soviet Union.
Don't tell him that'll block you. So
I'm already blocked. And but everybody else pitch it. Well, for the most part, most players, pitch in on the defense too to get the puck so they can play offense. It's a full 200-foot game. He only wants to do what he wants to do, and it shows. Like, how many times have we seen a breakdown? Even Braun, who's slower than anything, makes a mistake, has to run back, actually gets back, ties up the stick, makes the pass to the trailer, who's untouched. He scores, and who's the next flyer you see? Voracek, because he didn't get back. Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, this is ridiculous. You have to have the full effort. You can't just play when you feel like playing. I'm just going to do offense. You can't do that. Like, you have to play the full game, especially this team that has holes and has young guys. You cannot be setting that kind of who would look up to Jake Voracek's play? I want to be I want to play like Jake Voracek. Do you really think there's going to be any NHL future players who say, that's the guy I looked up to? That's the guy, my favorite player? Give me a break, man.
Right. And that's kind of how I'm thinking. I'm trying to put myself in that room. And yeah, he's got the numbers. Like, the numbers are there. There's no denying that. They're very solid numbers, 60 plus points a season. Almost every year he's been here. I think every year. I got to look. But if you're a player in that locker room, how can you, respect Jake Voracek when he talks? What have you won, Jake? What have you won? Right? It's like, you're not near the top of the league in any statistical category. Why am I listening to you? I don't know, man. I just, some of the shit that he says, I can't respect a guy that talks like that or treats people who are perceived to be below him like that. It just doesn't make sense.
I bet you he's a good teammate. Like, I do. I believe that. Like, I played with guys that, we'd have a free agent team, for that one summer where my real team disappeared for a while. And there'd be this guy, he was super into it, and he would text everybody and he would plan practices and got our jerseys for us and all that. But he sucked. He was terrible. And it was he's a nice guy. I like him. He's kind of funny too. He is a terrible hockey player. You know what I mean? Jake's not that bad, but if you're a great teammate and you have a good time with your teammate and all that, and but you ultimately don't get it done, how do you keep that respect? You can't. Like you can't be like, it'd be great playing with you. I have a good time, but if we don't win anything, what the hell's the point?
Yeah. So let's look at one more. It looks like a trade scenario here from our buddy Chris McCarthy. Everybody wants a blockbuster. And Jack, I want to get your opinions on this. Two teams that need shakeups, it looks like. This trade is saying Coots, Konechny, Patrick to Calgary, Gaudreau, Monahan, and a 2021 first to the Flyers. What are your thoughts on Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan?
I would take them both. I mean, I've always thought that Calgary and Philadelphia were, I don't want to say a match made in heaven, but they have conflicting issues that they could swap and make some noise. I would not put Coots in that trade. I think it should be attainable to get Gaudreau, Monahan, who have pretty much are gone. I think Gaudreau is going to be a free agent soon anyway, and he's from the area. Konechny can go, Patrick can go. You would hope they could get a JVR or a Voracek more so for the money. Probably JVR for the money, and with how he's played this year, it might not be that bad. And he's only got 2 more years. And maybe we give a pick or something. I don't necessarily need a top pick back. But to get 2 players like that, they get a change of scenery. Maybe we throw in Ghost or something like that. I don't know. That would do wonders for us. I'd almost Voracek would be the name going back simply because we can get out of our locker room. Gaudreau would most likely be revitalized to be, hey, I'm in my hometown with the team I grew up cheering for. Like, this is great. And he's got some of the most talent than anybody on either team. He just doesn't really show it. We'll see how he is in the playoffs. I know that's a concern of his. He doesn't really play in the playoffs, although he did a year ago. And Monahan's another, hard-nosed guy. I think things just stopped working for them out there. They haven't exactly been a perfect roster. And maybe we reshuffle the deck and we change the locker room atmosphere, and you know what? Maybe it works. If we can trade a bunch of what we don't like for a bunch of what they don't quote unquote like, and there's no value there with the flat cap, maybe we do make more sense. I don't think it's that crazy. I would try to hold on to Coots though. I would not send Coots the other way.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was getting hung up at, Konechny, as much as I might seem like I don't like the guy, I actually do like the player. I just think that they can squeeze a little bit more juice out of that lemon, and they're not really getting it. So I'm not crazy. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like the trade. I'm like completely opposite. I'm not the biggest Johnny Gaudreau guy. Hate him, actually. Monahan's very good center. Just if we're looking at this trade right here, I think that's massive downgrade from Couturier. I think Couturier, if it's possible, and maybe it's just because I was a little bit not as high as everybody on him last year, I think he's kind of elevated his game even more this year. I'm going to go ahead and say he's elite. Now, maybe not elite offensively, but his offensive game is good enough that when you consider his defensive game, obviously Selke Trophy winner, he's elite, in my opinion. He's making other players around him better. Farabee, JVR, whoever plays with Coots is scoring points. So just going based off this trade here, and Jack, you already said you wouldn't do it with Coots in. I don't think I can do this trade. I like Monahan a lot as a player. Gaudreau, very good regular season player. Is he better than Konechny? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. You're getting rid of Patrick. Maybe it's a good trade, but it's not the trade that I want to see. Maybe that's why I'm kind of like, hey, what's the point of that trade? I would rather change up the mood of the locker room a little bit. And I'm still looking at Voracek. I'm looking at, maybe JVR, guys like that. I see Coots as the next captain of the Flyers. How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's a foregone conclusion. I don't even know who else you consider at this point. None of the defensemen, like maybe Provorov, you think, but after this year, that's really a push. And Farabee's too young. So, like, who's left at that point? Hayes? Like, his stats might be there, but his defensive play is not. As Kyle's pointed out numerous times and shown video of, he just doesn't even want a forecheck. He waves his stick around and turns around. Like, it's embarrassing. And he was one of the guys that was big on our penalty kill. I haven't seen much shorthanded play from him. Scott Lawton, God bless his soul, 2 opportunities. It didn't come through, but like at least he's there.
God bless his skulls. God bless his skull too. He was dropped on that a couple weeks
when he
ago.
gets sent, But if Couturier is moved in a deal, it's going to be for something significant. Somebody mentioned Eichel earlier. Not that I think the Flyers would ever do that. He would be like a major piece in that. He definitely wouldn't be the only major piece, but that's the only thing I could see him going in, unless there's some kind of young stud defenseman out there at a reasonable price that they think they could swap him for. But then I think you're just trading one problem for another. The core of this team needs to change. I think Giroux's old enough where you can keep him, pay him less when his contract runs out, play him lower in the lineup, and keep him because he's still talented. Couturier does a lot of the things that we're hating on Jake for. Like, you don't want to move Couturier. Yeah, you don't want to move Couturier when he does everything Jake doesn't do. And he scores, and he has the offense. And he can play on power play, penalty kill. He does it all. So, and he won a Selke. The league, realized his talent and gave it to him, which is tough. Flyers don't win shit around these parts. And, Voracek he just wants to play offense when he feels like playing offense. And that's the core of the team that needs to change. He may be more the silent type like Giroux is, but not the worst thing in the world. Trading a guy like that's far from some of the issues we have. I understand Konechny being moved. I understand Patrick being moved. Some people are so quick to come to his defense. Oh, he's missed hockey for a year. He's played how many games now? And he's barely contributed. That's a major problem. To not miss any games, which is good, but to not get any points at all, that's part of the reason why this team's is losing, honestly.
That it's hard for me to be angry at Patrick because this is exactly what I expected. We were I think we all agreed as long as Patrick's playing, it's a success. And I don't know how many points he's got, but in 56 games, I don't think he was going to score more than 20 points. And I think he's on pace for around that. So it's so weird because as much as I wanted to get rid of Patrick before the season, I'm not sure he's doing. I mean, maybe just by playing, he's elevated his trade value just a smidge. So, when we include these guys in trades, it's how much value do they add to a trade? Is Nolan Patrick even worth a 2021 first-round pick? I wouldn't say so. So it's what are you going to get for Patrick? The Flyers can, I believe he's an RFA after this year, so they can bring him back for one more year. And if I'm thinking rationally, I'm okay, well, yeah, sign him to a tender again. He's going to play for another year for cheap and see if you can get the kinks worked out there. Because you had built-in excuses already for this year with, Nolan Patrick and the head stuff, Lindblom coming back from cancer. It's an expansion year, as we keep friggin' hearing over and over again. Flat cap for the next 2 seasons after this year. All the excuses are there to be made to punt this season, Nolan Patrick included. If I'm thinking rationally, yeah, I'm going to say give him one more year and see if he can come back bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. Here's where I think Nolan Patrick, he's missing the one key ingredient. You know what that is, Jack? He's missing the heart. He's missing the determination, the desire to be better than the next guy. I said it on OMB. If you put Sam Morin's heart in Nolan Patrick's body, Nolan Patrick is, a first or second line center in the NHL easily. Unfortunately, here's the thing, I feel bad criticizing Nolan Patrick because you can't fault a guy for being hurt. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the same drive and will and determination to be better than the next guy. His entire, career growing up as a kid, he was easily the best player every team, every league he was in. Didn't have to work harder than the next guy because he was more talented. Now you get to a league like the NHL as a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid, and you have to work. You have to work to be better than the next guy, right? It's a job now. You have to work. Everybody's better than you. You're not the best anymore. You have to work. You have to want to be the best. I don't get that from Nolan Patrick. I don't see it from him during games. I don't get that from him during interviews. I kind of get the whole yeah, guys, I missed last year. What are you going to do? Where I look at Sam Morin, not comparing the players skill-wise. I look at Sam Morin come back from how many ACL surgeries did he have? 2 or 3? And, every time we heard from him, it was positive stuff. This kid could have ended his career 2 or 3 times, and he's in the NHL today because he wants to be here, right? They need more of that. They need more guys like Sam Morin on this team. Not skill-wise, because I know people are going to come right at, oh, if they need more Sam Morans, the Flyers are going to be real good. Not talking about that. They need the desire to be better than the next guy, and they're missing guys like that. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there a little bit.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think. Like, you just look back to that draft, and we've talked how good everybody who went after Patrick has been. You know, Heiskanen, Patterson, Makar, but even what the hell's his name for the Devils?
Hischier.
Hischier. You know, you look at his contract, and he's the captain now. You talk about turning a page. The Devils turned a page, not just by moving out certain players, but they made him the captain. That's with Hughes on the team. You know, like any other team just gives their captaincy to their best player and goes, all right, let's go. You know, they chose to give it to Hischier. You know, so it's like now it's starting to look like everybody in that top 5, top 10 is pretty good except Patrick, which is really a sting. And I know Hischier's not like a superstar, but they're getting something out of the guy. And $7 million, that's not cheap by any means. That's Kevin Hayes money, for God's sake. Free agent Kevin Hayes money, you know? And we got Patrick's not even making $1 million yet because he's missed time with headaches. He's finally back. He's played over 30 games. How many games do you need to show me something? I'm not asking you to lead the league in points or anything. Just show that talent. And the desire doesn't seem to be there. If the desire was truly there, he'd have played at some point last year. That's how I feel.
Hard to disagree with that, dude. Hard to disagree. Yeah, I agree, man. If you want to play, you find a way to get out there. You know, some guys play hurt. I don't know what he was going through, so I can't speak to that. I will say this, however, having missed a year of professional hockey, no practices, no games, and getting thrown into a season where these guys are playing 12 games in, 20 days, 21 days, that's a little bit tough. You know, you don't have the legs for that. It would have been hard to come back in an 82-game season where the games are more spaced out, where they have 3 and sometimes 4 days off in between. You know, these guys are playing every other night, lots of back-to-backs. It's an excuse, 100%, but I think we should factor that in a little bit, maybe cut them just a little bit of slack.
I mean, it's not wrong, but I'll tell you this. I thought I saw more effort from Lindblom in the bubble playoff game after beating cancer going out in November than I have any game with Nolan Patrick.
And it's true. You can't really argue that. Well, we are about 46, 47 minutes in. Kind of wanted to keep this episode a little bit shorter since we're coming back this weekend with Kyle and Steve for a trade deadline preview show where we'll talk all potential trades, potential moves. Is Scott Lawton on the move? He is on the TSN trade bait list, the number 9 player on that list. So yeah, a lot of stuff could happen. There's a lot of, depth defensemen that the Flyers could potentially go after that could be around for next season. Let's hope it's not Eric Stahl. What's today, Jack? Wednesday? So whether we're back Friday night or Saturday night, if anything happens between now and then, we'll be talking about it. Jack and I will also be back on Monday to do a show leading up to the trade deadline. The hour or two leading up, we'll talk about all the trades that have happened and trades leading up to when we are finished the episode. So yeah, we're bringing a lot of stuff to you guys. Chris, thank you for the compliment there. We're trying hard. We enjoy doing it. Thank you guys for listening and watching as always. Jack, you just had a show come out over the weekend.
W Full Circle picked back up after a 2-week hiatus. Listen. We might know what we're talking about just a little bit because we called the Palmieri trade. Didn't know Sajak was going with him, but I did say it's a Lou Lamoriello guy. Sure enough, they make the trade for him only a couple days later. Just a little squid bit of what's going to come with the trade deadline. It should be fun. Doubt the Flyers go down to the actual deadline itself, which is Monday at 3 p.m. But we'll be on before that, and we'll be breaking down anything they do. We'll have a lot to say about Fletcher, that's for sure. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully, we'll most likely be venting, but hopefully maybe he does something hopefully he gives us something to talk about. So No surprise, the Full Circle boys calling another trade within the division there. And great stuff as always. What else do we got? I think that's it. Isaiah from OMB Puck had me on as a guest on his show. I mentioned it multiple times in hopes that you guys go check that one out. Isaiah is a great guy. They do great work over there at OMB Puck. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure you check out bellyupsports.com, fullpresscoverage.com. If you guys can see the t-shirts, I always do that. The t-shirts are on this side, and I always point to this side first.
You'd make it
you can
a terrible weatherman.
If you guys can see these shirts right here, these are for sale. $20 a pop. Shoot one of us a DM. Shoot the High and Wide Twitter a DM at HW Radio 18. Facebook as well. We have some cool hats here. It's a little bit warmer out now, so these will be for next year, I imagine. And we have koozies. Do I have one available right here? Yeah, I do. It's koozie season, boys and girls. So you can see the HW logo there. What's up, you beauties on the back? $5 a pop, made by Steph Sips. Go to Steph's at Steph Sips _ on Instagram or Twitter. If you like mugs, she's got mugs free too. Jack, do you have a read in front of you for that CBD? I know you guys did one on Full Circle. If you don't have the read, it's okay. Just do a quick shout out to our buddy there.
Yeah, no, I definitely did my first read of the CBD oils. Those of you who suffer from anxiety, quite like myself, I strongly suggest checking out this website. It's let me get it for you real quick.
It's all right.
Yeah.
CBD though, good stuff.
Actually, it's Green Compass. I don't have the website in front of me, but if you Google it, it'll come right up. I do have a phone number. Chelsea Gavetti is the name that you want to get in contact with. 610-329-9924. Mention the High and Wide podcast to get you a discount on your first purchase. It's for CBD oils and such. They're great for pain relief and anxiety. And I cannot stress enough, no pun intended, the anxiety part of it, those of you who suffer with it like myself, does wonders. And it's these CBD markets a little expensive, so getting a some kind of discount is definitely a huge thing. So by all means, use the discount code. Check it out. That's Chelsea Gavetti. Check it out again.
All right, awesome stuff there. And with that, boys and girls, Flyer fans of all ages, until we meet again, get outside. Get outside, enjoy the weather, and take your vitamins. We'll be back this weekend. Thanks, guys.